So in today's video, I want to cover the best way for you to turn your first home into an investment property. So stay tuned for the full scoop. Now, I have had so many clients as first-time home buyers tell us, Alexa, we are ready. We want to make this house our investment property. And honestly, for me, it is so rewarding to see my clients do that. I personally did not know anything about real estate when I first joined the industry. And my agent at that time never took the time to explain all the options I could have. Now, I don't know if it was just because she didn't know, but we're not gonna talk about that. I just want to share all the options that my clients could have. So whenever they're first-time home buyers, I always get their wheels turning and I'm like, look, later down the road, because statistically speaking, usually people only last in their house 2 to 6 years, depending on your situation. And a lot of the times it's because, baby's on the way and they want a bigger place, or just like the in-laws are starting to move in. We're Latino heritage, so obviously we have a lot of that where we take care of our grandparents or our parents, whatever it might be, right? And they tend to always upgrade. Oh, and quick note, not that just Latinos do it, because I know a lot of my friends that have different backgrounds and they also do it. So just a quick reminder there as well. But anyways, we always talk about it and we have always told them, you know what, this is your first home. Don't push yourself to a situation where you're going to feel uncomfortable. There's so many people out there that are gonna try and push you to the most for whatever your approval is for. Don't do that. Look at what you want your monthly payment to be at, because if they have your best interest at heart, they should be telling you, yeah, even though you're qualified for $500,000, you shared with me that you would feel more comfortable at $300,000. Let's focus on $300,000 homes to get you to that monthly payment. Not that the person can't afford it, but they're asking you for something at the beginning. Now, if they decide they want to change that, then that's of course completely their option. But I like to always remind them of that. Now, I say this because there's been so many clients that have just shared with us, oh my God, this is our first home. We really want to get everything right. And we always tell them, like, we're going to get as close as possible to perfect. But just remember that usually your first home, depending on your situation, I know for me that was the case. I didn't get to get a custom home, right? My first home was something that I was very proud of, but it wasn't exactly my dream home. It wasn't necessarily the bells and whistles that I was wanting. At that point though, I was completely appreciative. I was super thankful for the fact that I even had the opportunity to qualify, because there's so many people that want to buy a home and unfortunately they just can't qualify. And I remember being so thankful for that. But at the same time, I was being realistic. And I remember, okay, this is something that maybe for now, right? And I always share that with them because I want my clients to know you can do this as your first home, later turn it into your first investment property. So whenever they call and they're like, hey, we're ready to upgrade, what do we need to do because we want to turn this baby into a rental? I always get super excited because I see them moving up on their goals, and that is super rewarding. So today we're going to cover that. We're only going to dive deep into 2 options that I would recommend for you. Obviously, depending on what your situation is, there's more that you consider. The first option is going to be you rent the property out, or the second option is you turn it into an Airbnb. Now there's some other options like I mentioned, however, I am going to stick to these 2 for the purpose of this video. Now, the first option, if you're renting it, you want to keep in mind the legwork behind both of the options you have within that first option. Number 1 is you go and you find a tenant on your own. Now, if you're going to do that, you still want to conduct a background check, unless it's maybe like a family friend or a actual family member that you personally want to rent the house to because you know them, then of course that is completely your right. I would still encourage you to do the background check because again, business and family, it's something that you just want to be very careful about. There's a lot of people that say they don't mix. They do mix because that's just not true in my opinion. However, you need to be cautious, right? Protect your investment. You've been working so hard for it. The last thing you want is for you to have any kind of problems there. So for me personally, whenever that situation would arise, if you're either finding a tenant or you're doing, as we just talked about with a family friend or family member, you want to ensure you conduct your background check for the person, you have an actual contract written, okay? That is so important because that is what's going to not only protect you, but also them against any kind of default within the lease. Now, right now, we're gonna make this very brief. If you have any questions about that, please let us know down below in the comments. However, when you are getting this contract in place, you wanna talk about the security deposit. You wanna talk about when the lease is going to start, when it's going to end, what they have to make sure that they're returning the property as. Pro tip, I always recommend you take pictures, get very, very good pictures of the property before you let them go in, because it's happened before where people did not take pictures and they destroyed the house, and then later they're like claiming they want their deposit back, and then they're trying to sue people for their deposit back, and it's like, sir, did you not see the condition you left my house in? So anyways, just saying, be very careful when it comes to that. Hence why we also recommend the credit check, because that's gonna show if there's any evictions that they've been part of, any kind of situations that you just maybe want to avoid, right? Now, I'm not saying that people with bad credit can't actually turn their life around, because I know so many wonderful clients that have done that. We've worked with them years to get them qualified, but I know everybody's different. I know some of my clients that are the landlord have decided, you know what, yeah, I'm gonna give them an opportunity based off everything that they've seen. Some, they just won't go for it because they're trying to protect their asset and they don't wanna have to worry about that. So that's entirely up to you, whatever you decide to do with that baby of yours, your first house, right? Now, after you have done this, I always recommend you use also a credit service to now run the application for these candidates. I'm gonna find some options for you guys because I've used some in the past, but things have changed. So I'm gonna look for some references to add on this video below, and this way you guys can use them as a tool. Now, with that being said, now that you have your potential tenant, you've done the screening, you've done your lease, you've done the agreement, then hey, now you can go ahead and handle everything moving forward, from the fact that obviously now you're the actual landlord, so you need to be on top. Any kind of repairs that they might need, maybe they need to connect the HVAC system, maybe they have a problem with water softener, whatever it is, you are going to be the person in charge of that, okay? And this is why I'm very transparent about that, because some people just don't realize how much does go into running a property. Sometimes you can have the most wonderful people of all time. I know that when we rented, we never, ever called the landlord. I mean, ever. So I know there's some great tenants like that, that also they just want their privacy and they'll rather fix it themselves, right? But not everybody's like that, and you can't expect them to, because they are paying you rent, right? So you want to provide a good property for them to live in with their family. So if this is something you're considering doing, just make sure you have some good contractors in place, have some good connections for that, because you want to be equipped. Now, if that's not your cup of tea and you're like, that you said too much, you lost me at signing the lease, then you want to use a property management company. We have some great property management companies that we have worked with, that we have some of the properties that they manage for us. I could recommend something to you guys, depending on where you're at, of course, let us know. But if not, just do your own research. Go on Google, put property management companies nearby, and go down the rabbit hole in figuring out which one's going to be the best for you. The way typically that they will charge you is going to be a percentage of your rent. So let's just say $2,000, they're gonna charge you 15-20% out of that $2,000. Depending on your situation, it could be less, and of course, depending on the company, it could be more. Typically 15 to 20%. I have seen some go down to 10%, but that's because they have multiple that they're managing for the person, so they'll give them a deal. But again, just do your research, and of course, you can find some good ones, because now they will handle all of that for you, and all they will do is call you and let you know, Mr. or Mrs., there is a problem with the plumbing, we need to get this fixed, and then they will tell you, I'm gonna send a contractor, I will send you the invoice. So you're like, great, right? So that would be one of your options, okay? Now you're like, no, tell me more about the Airbnb, okay? Now with the Airbnb, I'm just gonna speak from my own personal experience. Remember, I am not a licensed attorney, but I'm just gonna give you my own personal situation of what I did with one of my houses to flip it into an Airbnb. Now, one of the first things you want to do is go to Airbnb and find out what actually is going on in your market when it comes to Airbnbs, okay? You can go down the rabbit hole with that. You can watch a ton of videos that are on YouTube showing you about how to compare that. I'm not going to go deep down into that whole, there's a lot that goes into just, I mean, it's really simple, but there's just a lot of little, prompts there, if you will. If you guys want a video about that, let me know and we can definitely do one for you. But with that being said, there's a lot of stuff there that's already available for you. Now, the reason I say this is important is because you want to find out what is going in your what's going on in your area as to what are they renting each one of these rooms for, or these houses for, or this condo for. Because if you're in an area where in order for you to offset what you're paying in your mortgage, and now you're going to put yourself in a situation where you're only able to rent it for $150, and after running the numbers, you're like, no, I'm still going to be bleeding every month, then that's probably not the best for you, and maybe you still want to rent it. But let's just say you're in a good area where you see the traffic is happening and you want to move forward with actually renting your property as an Airbnb. You want to make sure, number two, is that you are in an area where it is allowed, okay? Depending on where you're at, I am in Texas, I am in El Paso to be exact, and we actually have some pretty nice rules when it comes to Airbnb. Now they're starting to get a little bit stricter on certain HOAs, so certain locations that have an HOA will not allow an Airbnb. So be very careful also of where you're buying your home, okay? Always look at the fine print. Now, with that being said, if that is something that you're considering doing, again, just make sure that now that you know you're considering renting it out, you've done your homework when it comes to the area, you've done your homework when it comes to the rules that you have in that location, now you can really go to work on what it is you want to do with that house. And remember, on a minimum, you want to at least budget between $5,000 to $10,000. Honestly, I'm gonna say $10,000, okay? Depending on the area you're in, you might be looking at this video like, what is she on? She is cray. But in El Paso, Texas, I've been able to order a bunch of stuff online, and I'm sure you can use the same websites, and you can order a bunch of great products for great prices. So you don't have to go to your local furniture store to furnish your entire house where they're gonna chop off one of your arms and the half of the other one. So you can definitely do that. And I was able to furnish this last one for $10,000. It was literally right under $10,000. So just some food for thought there. Now, after you have that done, you can go ahead and now go to work, make that baby pretty, decorate everything. I decorated everything on my last one because I enjoy it. I don't know if it's about, I don't know, it just spoke to me and everything kind of aligned itself. You know, I'm always talking about positivity. Well, speak into the universe, ask and you shall receive, because everything aligned itself. The colors I was looking for, I was just like finding them. I went to TJ Maxx and I found a bunch of great deals. So there's a lot of things that you can find within what you're looking for, just depending on what you're going for, okay? Now with that being said, oh, and I'll leave a link down below so you guys can check it out and see exactly what it is that we just did with that last one. If this is something you're like, Alexa, you lost me at having to now look for the comps in the area to see what I was gonna rent it for, or you lost me at having to decorate, there are certain people that can help you with that, okay? I know some great people that can help you. I've actually done it for some of my clients. I personally don't have this whole portfolio of them because I do have my career that I have to take care of, my baby. But with that being said, I am considering starting something with that as well because it was really fun and a lot of people gave us some great feedback about that Airbnb. So definitely, if you need any tips, let us know. Use this as a free resource. But if you're looking for somebody to full-time handle that for you and now manage actually because remember, we forgot about some very key points here. You also want to make sure you know some contractors. You also want to know some cleaning people for them to help you now clean the property. Trustworthy as well, that's very important. You want to make sure you have some cameras on the property, outside the property, of course, and you just want to make sure you have somebody that can help you if you're not going to do it yourself, of course, when it comes to collecting that actual payment, right? Airbnb typically does that, but we also like to advertise on some other platforms because Airbnb does take a pretty good chunk. It's not the end of the world because they do handle a lot of the customer service like through the app and everything, which is pretty nice. But if you're interested in also maybe targeting traveling nurses or just somebody that's gonna be more of an extended stay, well, some things to consider. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I wanted to make those key points because I know so many of our clients are now graduating into investors and I'm super proud of them. And I know a lot of other clients out there are wondering how they can transition into that next step. Now, the last thing I'm going to end with is once you do this, you're going to have your executed lease now show that you have something in play for you to show your lender, for you to be able to defer that payment in order for you to qualify for your new home and be able to offset the DTI. Now, there's a few things here that again can play out when it comes to the Airbnb. If you do have any questions, please again, use us as a resource. Reach out to us. All our contact information is down below. And we hope you enjoyed this video. Leave us a comment down below with any questions and we'll talk to you on the next one.